The year was 1999. UN Secretary General Kofi Annan symbolically designated a baby boy from Sarajevo named Adnan Nevik as the 6 billionth human being to be born. Years later, Nevik's family told the media that the honor was, quote, pretty useless, a sentiment that Harrison Ford would surely also use to describe his 1999 People's Choice Award win for Favorite Motion Picture Star. And on March 5th, a future cult classic starring a cast of rising Hollywood stars all trying to screw one another, both literally and figuratively, hit theaters. But Ryan never saw it. Until now. This is Movies I Missed 1999, Episode 7, Cruel Intentions.
I'm Jesse Munoz.
And I'm Ryan Miller.
This is Movies I Missed, the year 1999, episode number 7. Today we're going to be talking about Cruel Intentions, released March 5th, 1999, with a running time of 1 hour and 37 minutes.
I do want to give a warning. We will be discussing all aspects of this movie, so be advised that includes spoilers.
Cruel Intentions is a modern adaptation of the classic French novel Les Liaisons Dangereuses, translated Dangerous Liaisons. Set in an elite New York City prep school, the story follows the manipulative step-siblings Catherine and Sebastian. They make a bet. Sebastian must seduce the innocent Annette Hargrove before the start of the school year. As the plot unfolds, their schemes lead to unexpected consequences, revealing deeper emotions and moral complexities.
About that little wager of yours. Count me in.
What are the terms?
If I win, then that hot little car of yours is mine.
And if I win?
I'll give you something you've been obsessing about ever since our parents got married.
Be more specific.
In English, I'll fuck your brains out.
What makes you think I'd go for that bet? That's a 1956 Jaguar Roadster.
Because I'm the only person you can't have and it kills you.
No way.
You can put it anywhere.
You got yourself a bet, baby.
Ryan, this is your choice, and for the first time, I can say that I've seen this movie before you have. This is our 7th episode, and I hadn't seen any of them. This one I had seen, but I'll tell you this much. It's been a long time since I've seen it, so much so that, we're going to talk, obviously, spoilers. I forgot that Ryan Phillipe dies in the movie. Like, I totally forgot the ending.
Yeah. That came as a surprise to me as well. Based on your vaguest recollection of when you saw it last, would you have said that you liked it, didn't like it?
I knew that I didn't like it. I'm not a big fan of like the soap opera-y, especially like teenagers pretending to be adults. I know that kind of bugs you when like kids are in movies and they're always way smarter than kids should be, right? Like It's just a trope that happens in like all movies because no one writes kids as kids. They're always way smarter. And this, where it's like teenagers that act like adults in a way that's just so unrealistic. I mean, in reality, all of them are like 28 or whatever when they made the movie. So they are.
Yeah, but they're supposed
adults,
to be high
schoolers. Yes.
Yeah.
I just don't. That always bugs me when high schoolers don't seem like high schoolers. And it happened a lot more in the 80s, less so in the 90s. And now, like, you watch like Spider-Man, and the Spider-Man kids look like they're kids. They look like teenagers. I mean, Tom Holland was like 20 or whatever when they first shot that one. But in the 80s, it was egregious. Like, you look at Revenge of the Nerds, and all of the high schoolers look like they're like, they could be in.
Hell, go back even further and watch Grease.
Oh, right.
That's uncanny.
So old. And
I think there were some like 38-year-olds playing high schoolers in that movie.
Yeah. This one is not as egregious. Like, they all look young. I think Selma Blair actually was the oldest, and she's playing probably the youngest. Yeah, I think she's about 5 or 6 years older than everyone else in the movie.
Wow.
But
I wouldn't have guessed that. Like, I'm not super like well versed in Selma Blair. Like, mainly the only thing I really have seen her in that I know of is Hellboy.
Oh, right, yeah.
Where she played Liz Sherman.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, she looked really young to me, and maybe it was the character she was playing because she was the one that was kind of like a normal high school idiot. Whereas everybody else is like a scheming adult in a child's body.
Yeah, she almost felt like a mentally handicapped child. Like,
that's just because she wasn't 6 steps ahead of everybody else all the time like the rest of the characters were.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never... This is one I never really knew 100% what it was, but I just feel like at the time when it came out, it was like mildly infamous, and it was one of those kind of it movies, and I don't know how I never saw it.
Yeah, it's the MTV generation for sure. Like TRL was really big, and Dawson's Creek and all that kind of stuff. And
I mean, I was watching stuff like, American Pie and The Faculty and like Scream and all that shit. So I don't know how this one slipped by me.
Yeah, it's a little surprising, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah, but there are a couple movies I still haven't seen. I'm working on it, but yeah, I will agree with you to an extent. Definitely in this movie. I mean, there's so little adult intervention of any kind. Like these, the kids live in these like fancy high-rise, like almost Victorian looking apartments that their like rich parents own. And the parents are like never around. Like, God, do we even ever see Ryan Phillipe and Sarah Michelle Gellar's parents?
Maybe at the end at the funeral, but I wouldn't know because they never addressed them.
Yeah,
as
it's like
parents.
they're living in these crazy apartments that they're not paying for. They live there with their parents, but I don't know if there's a line in the movie where they're like, oh, well, our parents are away on like, on the yacht somewhere in the south of Spain, and so we're home all alone or something. But Ryan Phillipe's character's driving around in that fancy ass car, and not even like what you would think a kid in the 90s would want as an expensive car. Right. It's like some old school looking, like someone's butler in the 1940s would drive him around in looking thing.
Yeah.
People who know cars and know what car is in the movie are probably shaking their heads right now. But yeah, I mean, there's an element of, I do find that annoying. This movie, it's like, that's the whole fucking movie, so it didn't really bother me in this one. Like, it's more when there's one character that sticks out like a sore thumb.
Sure.
Like, the younger sister in 500 Days of Summer is one that always jumps to mind.
Yeah.
Or even, to an extent, Ryan Gosling's daughter in The Nice Guys. Stuff like that, where there's one character that feels out of place. This one, it's just like, this is the world we're in.
It's the whole world. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, if anybody acts like a normal teenager, they're the ones that feel out of place in this. But this one, it's just, without, fully showing my hand, I think if I had seen this movie back around the time it came out, at the age I would have been at the time, I probably would have loved this movie.
Yes. Yeah, I get
now, whether I, give it the thumbs up or thumbs down at the end, I do feel like the time frame for me to really like it, like to really, really like it, has passed me by. And it was just kind of cloying, the whole movie. Just like,
it's such a movie of its time, right? Like,
it's so up its own ass.
It so is.
Everyone thinks they're so fucking cool.
I know.
Yeah.
I remember this might have been like the first thing I'd seen Ryan Phillipe in. I can't imagine seeing him in anything else. And I just hated him ever since. So even if he's been like in other movies, which I can't think of any movies that he's been in.
MacGruber,
yes. He just comes off such a douchebag to me. It's just his face more than him as acting.
I mean, that fits the role, right?
Yeah. I mean, it was perfect for this. And this is, again, for me in 1999, I'm 18 years old. This is like supposed to be speaking to me in a way that's like, you know what I mean? Like, you're a senior in high school. These are supposed to be seniors in high school. It's a little bit more adult. So it's kind of like, pushing you in a way that is supposed to like, titillate you a little bit more. But it's just so empty to me. I don't know, because of it's such a soap opera, right? It just feels like a giant soap opera on a movie set budget. And that's just not what I'm into. I way more enjoyed something like American Pie or even Varsity Blues. Varsity Blues is around this time as well. And
I love that movie too.
That has the same thing where like the kids are way more adult than they should be.
Well, it's like the circumstances they're finding themselves in is way more like adult because of the coach and how strict he is. And they're from this, area of the country or whatever that like really loves their football and like puts a lot of pressure on their kids. In this case, it's like the kids creating that environment on their own just because it's like they all saw some like noir movie and decided we're all going to be real like jerks like the people in those films or something.
But the entire setup, the premise of the movie, with the two of them having the conversation about setting up the bet, that's needs to sell the movie. And at that point, I'm like, nah, I'm out. Like, that doesn't interest me. Give me some football or something. I don't know.
There was something that was actually a little disappointing to me when that happened and the plot got rolling. Is that the bet is there's basically this magazine article with another rich girl played by Reese Witherspoon, who's like the goody two shoes. And I don't know why she's got an article about her in this magazine exactly, but she basically is saying like, oh, I have a boyfriend. We've been together for a year, but I am not going to have sex until like I am sure I'm in love or whatever and all this stuff. And she's like the goody. And Sarah Michelle Gellar and Ryan Phillipe are just like miserable assholes who delight in ruining other people's lives. So the bet is Sarah Michelle Gellar's like, I don't even remember if there's a time limit, but Ryan Phillipe is going to try and seduce and have sex with Reese Witherspoon. If he can't do it, he has to give Sarah Michelle Gellar his car. Mm-hmm. And if he can do it, then he gets to have sex with Sarah Michelle Gellar, his stepsister, who's like the only person that he can't have. I thought from like reading a brief synopsis or something at some point, I always had it in my head that both of them were trying to seduce her and it was who could do it first.
That sounds way more interesting to me.
I like that more. Like if Sarah Michelle Gellar wasn't just always hanging around the apartment waiting to toy with Ryan Phillipe, and if it was like she's out there trying to get like a lesbian love session going with Reese Witherspoon. That's always what I thought it was, and I was a little disappointed when it wasn't.
Yeah.
I thought that would have been more interesting.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the cast and the crew. Directed by Roger Kumble, who wrote and directed this. The only other like movie of note that I could find was The Sweetest Thing, and that's to say of note is generous. That's like a Jason
I know that
Lee
name.
movie.
What is that movie?
It's a Jason Lee movie with
with Selma Blair, right?
I think Selma Blair's in it, and what's her name from like Save the Last Dance and 10 Things I Hate About You? I can't remember her name off the top of my head. She was in the Bourne movies, or at least
she was in one season of Dexter.
Yeah.
Julia Stiles. Yeah, I think that's the sweetest thing. Once you said Jason Lee, I can picture the poster now.
Yeah, I've seen that movie. It's okay. But mostly this guy's been doing TV. He's done episodes of Entourage, Suits, Pretty Little Liars, things like that. So he was really the only name of the cast and crew that I could find with any sort of like credits to them. And then as far as the stars go, Sarah Michelle Gellar stars as Catherine. She's one of the two leads, her and Ryan Phillipe playing Sebastian. I feel like she's not around anymore. I don't think she works. If she does,
Did she like retire?
I don't know. I don't know.
She's got a family with Freddie Prinze Jr., right?
Yeah, I know he went and did like wrestling. Like he wrote for WWE for a while.
Who? Freddie
Prinze Jr.? Yeah.
What?
Yeah, you didn't know that?
No.
The reason
Why would I know that?
See them around is because I think that's what he's doing. I know she works. I just don't think it's like in big stuff. Like I feel like Scooby-Doo was the last like big thing that I saw her like her name in. But yeah, just looking at all of her stuff, it's mostly like voice acting. She was in Clerks 3 apparently. Mm-hmm. Of course, she did Buffy, which was the big thing, but mostly just like voice work and not a lot of like really big movies. But at this time, she's hitting it real big.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, she also, because Scream was like 96 or 97, and right after that, they pumped out I Know What You Did Last Summer, and she was the lead in that.
Yeah.
Right? Or am I mistaken? She's not the...
Well, no, it's Jennifer something.
Yeah, she's in it. She's not the main star.
Yeah. But yeah, so this is like, she's top dog, really, with like Buffy coming. I'm not sure when Buffy exactly was. Let me look. 97 to 2003. So yes, this is right in the middle of her
mid Buffy.
Yeah, huge. Scream 2 was 97. I Know What You Did Last Summer, 97, And then she had the Scooby-Doo movies. She did The Grudge in 2004. Forgot about that. So yeah, big time Sarah Michelle Gellar, like as far as like her star status is huge at this point.
Maybe you should try it on your friend Ronald sometime.
What are you saying?
Oh, come on, Cecile, it's obvious. He's crazy about you.
He sends me letters now. Love letters.
That's so romantic. Have you responded?
No.
Well, don't you like him?
I do like him. I think about him all the time. I don't know what to do if my mother found out. She would kill me.
You did hide the letters, right?
In an antique dollhouse in my room.
Okay. I want you to make copies of the letters and bring them to me.
Why?
Because if there's one thing I'm great at, it's love letters. With my help, Ronald will be eating out of the palm of your hand. Maybe we could even arrange a little get-together for the two of you at my house.
You do that for me?
Of course, silly. We're friends, right?
Best friends.
Ryan Phillipe, looking at his stuff, he did The Way of the Gun the following year. He was also in I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Is a movie that I love, The Way of the Gun. Have you ever seen that?
I've not.
Benicio del Toro?
I've not seen that one, no.
That's like a weirdly infamous movie because it completely bombed, and that basically single-handedly blacklisted, what's his name, who's directed the last couple of Mission Impossible movies?
Christopher McQuarrie.
Yeah, Christopher McQuarrie wrote and directed Way of the Gun. It was his first like movie he directed. I think he was like writing stuff for Bryan Singer before that. And then that movie like bombed so hard that nobody would like hire him for like 10 years or something. And then finally he made the first Jack Reacher with Tom Cruise. And then I think Tom Cruise just like swept him up and like brought him along to become the new mastermind behind Mission Impossible. But I personally love, and I know a couple of other people who really love Way of the Gun, and I think it's like super underrated, and I don't know why people don't like it.
Yeah, let's check it out. It feels like his star is like rising at this point, you know, coming off of, apparently he was in Crimson Tide, probably just as like a cameo or I don't even know, like a background player or something. I haven't seen that. I Know What You Did Last Summer, 54, which I think kind of bombed, and then Cruel Intentions, Way of the Gun. Feels like he's kind of in his like Ryan Phillipe, he's going to be a star, and then it just never really worked out.
Yeah, I mean he's a lead in all of those because he is the main character in 54, right?
Yeah. I think we watched that for Sidetracked.
We did.
Was not crazy about it.
Yeah, it's okay.
He was in Crash in 2004, which won the Oscar that year.
Yeah, I glanced over his credits the other day after I watched this, and it felt like for a good long time there, he was like in relatively big movies. Not that they were always the most successful thing, but like from this point for like a decade on, he was like in a bunch of stuff. And then before he kind of really disappeared.
I think he's directing and stuff now. So he's moved behind the camera. I think mostly like television stuff, nothing like huge. Definitely a good year for Ryan Phillipe, like 1999. Reese Witherspoon, I thought was probably the best actor in the movie. Like, I'm not a huge Reese Witherspoon fan, but she just felt to me like she had the most chops. Like, she was the best actor. She has the most screen presence, and she's obviously become a huge star. Like,
here's the thing with Reese Witherspoon. Like, I'm wondering what the general public perception of her is, but like, I feel like she is pretty outspoken about like, you know, different like charities and like kind of political stuff. Even with some of the movies she's made kind of recently. And I feel like she's mostly known for stuff like Legally Blonde and whatnot, and kind of, you know, cutesy, likable mainstream stuff. She always seemed kind of wholesome to me. And then the last couple of years, I've just watched a bunch of things where I'm like, God damn, Reese. Like, I knew, you know, she's in the movie Election, which I think you watched for the first time not too long ago. And she does play another kind of goody two-shoes character, but with like a darker side. Outside of that, I hadn't really seen anything before, you know, earlier, aside from like, was it the year before this? She did Pleasantville with Tobey Maguire.
I think so. And
which is a movie I've always liked.
Right, with Mark Wahlberg, isn't that movie?
I've never seen that one.
Oh, okay.
But like not terribly long ago, Vinegar Syndrome, one of the companies that I buy, you know, cheesy movies from, put out a movie. It was like early-ish in her career, called Freeway. Is that the one?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, with Kiefer Sutherland.
Yeah.
That movie's fucked up. And she plays like white trash, like shitty person in it. And I was like, damn, Reese. And then like by coincidence, I watched within the last year a movie called Twilight with Paul Newman and Susan Sarandon. And she plays like this young entitled girl who like runs away to like Mexico with a boy, and then Paul Newman is like this aging like detective or something who gets sent down there to find her, and she's got like tons of nudity and is just like acting like a complete bitch. And then, you know, Cruel Intentions and Election, it's like I'm watching all these things and I'm like, man, like I always thought she was like Miss Goody Two Shoes, but apparently
you thought
not.
she was just Legally Blonde, right? Like
Yeah,
Sweet Home
like-
Alabama. But no, she's a really good actress. She won an Academy Award for Walk the Line.
I have still never seen that.
That's a good movie. She was in a movie called Wild in 2014, where I think she also was like camping on her own. It's been a while since I've seen that one.
I kind of vaguely know the one that you're talking about. It's based on a true story, I think, isn't it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then she did Big Little Lies for HBO, and she's doing the morning show for Apple TV Plus, which again are more adult oriented. I think she's got a lot of range, and I think watching Cruel Intentions, you could see it compared to everyone else. Compared to like Sarah Michelle Gellar is fine, and she's playing up the character that she is. You know, such a mustache twirling sort of villain, you know what I mean? Like she's doing coke from her crucifix, and
Yeah.
you know, she's just playing it up in a way that feels like a TV actress. Sorry, no offense, but like that's kind of what she was. Whereas Reese feels like a movie star in the movie. Even in this movie, I feel like she just owns the screen so much more. She eats up Ryan Phillipe. I mean, like I don't think he's bad, but man, she's just so much better. Apparently, he was good enough for her because they ended up getting married after. This movie.
Really?
Yeah.
Are they still together?
They are not together. No. But they met in this movie and had a kid. So old Sebastian was able to put it in a net in more ways than one. So Selma Blair is another person that we talked about in the movie. You know, she was in Hellboy, also The Sweetest Thing. She had a stint on Friends that was kind of memorable, where she tries to get Chandler to cheat on his wife, Monica. And I think just recently she had some sort of illness where I don't know if she can act anymore.
Yeah. God, I was just reading about that. Multiple sclerosis or something like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, she looks very different now. She's seemingly pretty weak, but I think recently she was still doing some like show for Netflix or something.
Yeah. I mean, she's continued to work and she's just kind of been in stuff. She was never like a leading lady, but she was always...
It's one of these things, like I said, I'm sure I've seen a couple of other things that she's in and I just don't remember. But the main thing touchstone for me is the Hellboy, because it's like a, you know, superhero movie that I've liked, that she's kind of a main character in, the female lead anyway. And it's like, I know her from that. And then those movies were like the early 2000s. And then all of a sudden, like 2 years ago or something, I saw like an interview clip with her, and I saw her and I was just like, oh my God, what happened? Like, who is this?
Yeah. Yeah. She is a bit older than everyone else. She's 52 now. But yeah, I mean,
Ryan Phillipe is one of those people I just can't imagine being older than like 26.
He's 49, dude. He's 49 now. It's crazy. And that's the main cast. Who else? We have Joshua Jackson has a bit part. You know, I think he was on Dawson's Creek, but I always knew him from the Mighty Ducks.
Yeah.
Playing
I always knew him from the
friend.
covers, like the box art for like a bunch of these kind of like darker teen films that I never saw, like The Skulls and Gossip.
Yeah. He's one of those guys who's just kind of always been like a TV star.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think.
Tara Reid pops up very briefly in the beginning.
Yeah, he posts nude pictures of her on the internet, which is funny to think about in 1999 because it's like, who's going to see it, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, even I think there's very briefly, like, it's not even just like, you know, there wasn't social media back then. So it's not like I put pictures of her on Twitter or Facebook or Tumblr or something.
Right,
it was like he had to make a dedicated website. And I think, if I'm remembering correctly, it has like a picture of her that's like slightly animated, like he made an animated GIF out of her where like her legs are moving or something.
Yeah, that's probably cost a lot of bandwidth in 1999, man.
Yeah.
Sean Patrick Thomas, who plays he's like her music instructor. What's her name?
Cello instructor, like fellow student.
Who also at the time was kind of like having a moment. He was in Can't Hardly Wait. He was in Save the Last Dance with Julia Stiles.
He's one I recognized, but couldn't have told you a goddamn thing he was in.
Mm-hmm. Looks like he's been working. Like if you look at his IMDb, it's just like he's in stuff, but it's not like he's not the star of anything. He did the voice of guard number 2 in an episode of Invincible, so that's kind of the career he's kind of had. But
cool.
Guard number 2. He was in the Joel Cohen, The Tragedy of Macbeth, which starred Denzel Washington and Francis McDormand. Yeah, so getting work.
Yeah.
I mean, we've kind of talked about the story, right? Like, is there any parts of the story that we're missing?
I mean, I feel like there's plenty of other things we could touch on. For example, I just feel like if there was going to be a movie about like angsty teens at the time, one of them had to have this like super secret diary / notebook.
Right.
That when you see it, it's like, oh no, this definitely wasn't art designed. This is really drawn. And like, it's the whole thing looks like a punk rock gig poster with like black and white photos of his stepsister. Where the fuck is he getting these that he's like pasting in?
He's a photographer, man. Like, come on, remember? Don't you remember? He takes
like around the photos, there's just these like weird, almost like a mix between Celtic symbols and that like weird like angular S shape that everyone drew in their notebooks back in the 90s. Like, and then he just like that main first page that's a picture of her. It's like there's words all around it, and the words are like cocaine abuse or something like that.
It was like question mark. It was like cocaine abuse, baby.
Yeah. And it's like, it's his book about his conquests, like all the women that he's slept with, and it's like his prized possession or whatever. And
let me ask you this. Do you know the rating of this movie?
I have to assume it's R.
This is the mildest R-rated movie I've ever seen. Like, I think there's 2 fucks in it.
I was surprised there was no nudity. Like, for a movie that was this fucking thirsty, there's nary a nipple to be seen, which surprised me. Again, also considering, like I said, I recently discovered, like, earlier in her career, Reese Witherspoon took a lot of, like, kind of risque roles. And I mean, this was, like, more leading into the mainstream era of her career, but I was a little surprised.
I thought it was PG-13. No, I had to look. I was like, is this R? Because it doesn't really... After the second F word, I was like, oh, it must be R, because they dropped 2 F-bombs. It's like the tamest sex thriller, R-rated sex thriller I've ever seen. It's like all talk, which made it felt like it was PG-13 more than anything.
It's just funny when it's like there is a whole genre out there of like, you know, the like sexual thriller or, you know, those kind of movies, stuff like Basic Instinct or whatever. And then it's like someone at a studio was like, yeah, one of those, but for high schoolers.
Right.
And it's like, it is tamer, but it must have been a risk. I don't know how much this movie made.
I think it was
but
risky.
It must have been a risk to make a movie like this that's rated R that like is obviously geared towards kids who won't be able to get in to see the movie because they're not 18 or whatever.
For sure.
I hate it when things don't go my way. It makes me so horny.
I hate it too.
Seems like things are looking up for you.
It appears so.
Any luck with your girl?
Moving along quite well.
Have you succeeded in your task?
Any day now.
Well, let me know when you do. Until then, down, boy.
Oh, come on.
Like all the young boys who were like, 14, 15, sitting there watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer and getting hard-ons, and then like, oh, I want to go see the movie where she's like sexy and rubbing all up on her stepbrother, and I can't because it's rated R.
Yeah. Let's talk about his death scene. How did that car hit kill him? I was like, again, as far as tame goes, he barely like.
I was really surprised. Like, until it cut to the funeral, I did not think he was dead.
I thought it was a joke.
I was just like,
almost.
oh, he's going to be in the hospital, and like this is the culmination, but she'll be there at his bedside or whatever. But
I think they needed to go a bit more extreme with the way he died, because it was like, what killed him? Did he have drugs in his system or something? That I don't know, because there's no way that car hit him. Like, it didn't like crush his head. He just like rolled on top of the hood and like smashed the window, which we've seen in a million movies.
Yeah.
How did that kill him?
He landed funny. I don't know.
We had a conversation after he got hit, even. Like, it was like.
Yeah. That's why I was so surprised.
Yeah. I laughed out loud. Like, this movie is not funny, but at the funeral, when everyone starts walking out and Sarah Michelle Gellar's like, what is going on? You have no respect. And everyone walks out and she's passing out the journals to everyone. Mm-hmm. And everyone just kind of shakes their head no at Sarah Michelle Gellar. I was like audibly laughing because it was like everyone was doing, the parents even, like, she turns around to the parents and she's got tears running down her eyes and she's like, and they just shake their head.
The facade is gone.
But it's not even like she gets in trouble. Everyone just kind of looks at her and shakes their head no. I was dying. I thought it was so funny.
So that wasn't the funeral. That was like, she's giving some kind of like commencement speech or something, because she's like I don't know what you'd call it. She's like the head student body, whatever, at the school, because she's got all the adults convinced that she's actually Miss Perfect when really she's a horrible bitch.
That wasn't the funeral. They had like a picture of him with flowers around it. Like,
I think it might have been like they were memorializing him, but it was a school function, because it was like all the students there in their uniforms, and like the headmaster was there or whatever. And they were like on the school grounds. That wasn't like the actual funeral. I'm fairly positive.
It felt like it, just because they had his picture up there, like, and she's, doing the speech or whatever.
There's no way that many of his classmates would have gone to his funeral, right? Like, everybody hated him.
That's true. But Reese Witherspoon gets the car in the end, so that's the good news.
Why? Yeah. Why was she driving away in the car? Like, did he have a will and he left her the car or something?
What a 17-year-old has a will? Like, who gets that car?
I don't know.
Maybe she
or
just
was
bought
it like, if he was able to seduce Reese Witherspoon, then or if he wasn't able to seduce her, then his stepsister got the car. But if Reese Witherspoon was able to seduce him, she got it or something. Like, why was she driving around in his car? That made no sense to me.
I thought it's
all I have left of him is his car.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I think it was even like less so than the, like, how did he die from getting hit by that car? I just think it's ridiculous that, like, at that moment he's wandering down the street and runs across Ronald to get in the fight in the middle of the road to begin with.
Yeah. That was silly. I mean, so much of it is silly. Like, even him, like, he's this terrible person. He cares about no one. All he wants to do is bone. And, he's like kind of bored with life and how easy everything is. So they have this bet. And for some reason, he falls in love with Reese Witherspoon.
He catches feelings all of a sudden.
But I don't know why or how. Like, what changed? Like, she, even from her perspective, she knows who he is. There's never like him trying to trick her, because like she gets knowledge from someone else about who he is beforehand.
Does blackmail that friend of hers into like saying, oh no, he's actually a good guy. Like, all the things people say about him aren't true.
But nothing of his actions, I feel like, would have changed or even made her like attracted to him. I don't know. Maybe she was just physically attracted to him, but like their relationship did not work for me.
Yeah, when it's like they're finally about to get it on and then he's like, I can't do it. Like, that was the least believable thing in the whole movie.
Yeah, like all of a sudden she's like ready to do it, and then he's like, I can't do it, and then they do it. It's
like they wait less than 24 hours before they actually do it. Yeah. But the fact that he put it off for at least like 23 and a half hours means that he's actually a good guy.
But what changed for him? Like, did she change him? And if she did, how and what changed?
That's what it said in the script. So he just had to act that way.
Okay.
I don't know. It wasn't
something I missed, right? It wasn't like the relationship was like deep and meaningful and she taught him something about himself or the
it's like I could imagine a movie where it's plausible that happened, but he was such a devious, selfish piece of shit that like they did not do a good enough job of explaining how he like had a change of heart.
Yeah. That for me was one of the biggest mistakes of the movie, where it's like he changes, but we don't ever see him change. It's just like I can't do it. It's like, what? Who is this guy?
If
like, what
that
happened?
book of his is actually full of like all of his conquests and all the shitty things that he's done, and he gave it to Reese Witherspoon, they've only known each other for like what, a week or two. Like I just don't believe that she would read that and be like, all the terrible things in here are undone by the fact that he was willing to share them with me. I just
the fact that he's honest eliminates all of that what he's done. Apparently, it doesn't make any sense. Maybe I'm trying to break down something that isn't supposed to be broken down, like a soap opera, right? Like it's just emotions and feelings and things that.
I mean, like I said, there's other movies out there like this, and they're mostly meant for adults, and it feels like this is just the dumbed down version for kids, for like younger people, where, you know, it's not necessarily all going to logically make sense, but, you know, people who are like 17, 18 years old when they're seeing this back in 1999 are probably just like, wow, look how hot everybody is. Oh, he's such an asshole. Can you believe that happened? And don't really care about the plot as much. That's why I say back then, I bet you I would have loved this movie.
Yeah, I get it. Selma Blair didn't need to be in this movie, right? Like her whole story arc and storyline doesn't really.
She's in it a lot for a while, but then she just disappears for the last like third, if not half of the movie. There was a long stretch where there was a lot of focus on her and Ronald and everything, and I was wondering, like, I thought this was all about them trying to seduce Reese Witherspoon. What does she have to do with anything?
I guess it's to trick, it's a long con, right? It's to trick, what's his name, Sean Patrick Thomas Ronald, into beating up Sebastian, I guess, right? Is that the goal? Was that the goal of Sarah Michelle Gellar? Because like,
I mean, she
Ryan
was definitely
Phillipe,
using Ronald to make him jealous, but that was like later on. It feels like she didn't decide to do that. And it's like, obviously she did want to have sex with her stepbrother as much as he wanted to have sex with her, but she was just holding it over him because it's like the one upper hand that she had. So like he wins the bet and she's like offering himself to her like she wants it. And now he's in love with Reese Witherspoon, so he won't give it up. So it feels like she then made the decision, I'm going to use Ronald against him. I don't know if she intended for them to fight, but she definitely wanted to make him jealous or something. But like that all comes towards the end of the movie. Like, what was all this Selma Blair stuff in the first half? Like, I don't know.
To get back at her ex-boyfriend, but it really has no bearing.
Oh, that's right.
On the
because,
movie, though, right?
Because Sarah Michelle Gellar got dumped by some guy for Selma Blair.
But then, like, Selma Blair actually comes out on top, right? Like, she gets to make out with Sarah Michelle Gellar. Ryan Phillipe goes down on her. Apparently, they do it as well. They have sex, I think.
Yeah, it's insinuated that they have a couple of sessions to the point where he's just like bored of her.
So it's just all over the place. The movie's all over the place, man.
Yeah,
It's a bad soap opera, in my opinion. Let's talk a little bit about the box office. So the budget of this movie, Ryan, I must have wrote this down wrong. It was $10.5 million.
Oh, did you flip them?
I flipped them. I'm like looking at it. I'm like, there's no way it was $75 million to make this movie. No. The movie cost $10.5 million to make. It grossed $75 million. So
wow,
it did pretty well. It opened wide March 5th in 2,300 theaters, grossing $13 million in second place behind Analyze This, which also debuted that weekend. Its second weekend saw a drop of 46%, grossing $7 million in third place, and then it stayed in theaters until the beginning of April. So it stayed wide. It finally left theaters in July, at the end of July. So a decent run. But
I mean, $75 million on a $10.5 million budget ain't nothing to sneeze at.
For sure. Like, we'll talk about it when we get to some of the notes and cultural impact, but it was popular enough for them to at least attempt sequels or try to keep it going. To this day, they're still trying to revive this quote unquote franchise. But That's what happened. I mean, $10 million is super reasonable, right? This is the kind of, we talked about this throughout the series of this podcast. They don't make movies like this anymore that cost $10 million and make, 7 times their budget because it's just not where we're at anymore. This would be direct to Netflix or direct to Amazon or whatever. And no one would hear about it, right? Like no one's going to watch it. It's just going to have no life. Even if I don't love it, I still miss the fact that movies like this and more, just a lot of movies that are coming out where it's like throw everything against the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah, just think of all the $10.5 million movies you have no interest in that could be made right now that you'd then be able to catch up with in 20 years or 25 years.
Totally. It's got 53% on Rotten Tomatoes. Our boy Roger Ebert gave it 3 out of 4 stars and said it was smart and merciless.
That's a little surprising.
Yeah. I guess Raj just likes movies. I put a lot of reviews in. We're going to go through quite a reviews because as I was going through these reviews, they just made me laugh. It's like people really wanted to either take a piss out of this movie or they thought it was funny to like it. So here we go. Emmanuel Levy of Variety said, nasty, profane, and wickedly entertaining for the most part. Pick is quite a faithful rendition of the scandalous novel. So Emmanuel Levy of Variety liked it. Jay Boyer of the Orlando Sentinel said, Cruel Intentions is less laissez. I'm never going to be able to pronounce that again. As performed by Teletubbies. I thought this was the best review. Cruel Intentions is the book as performed by Teletubbies.
Not sure I 100% understand what that means, but obviously it's an insult.
It's not a good insult, but it's a funny one. Like Teletubbies are definitely of the time of 1999, of the late 90s. So it's like trying to be clever. I think it's not accurate at all, but I think he's just saying what it's like. It's the book, but for children, I guess. But it's, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Joe Morgenstern of the Wall Street Journal said, you've got to see it. Parentheses, no, that's a figure of speech. To believe the goofiness of French aristocrats recast as pansexual degenerates from a private school of Manhattan's Upper East Side. Oh boy. Did not a fan, Joe. Caroline Westbrook of Empire Magazine gave it a fresh score. Said not quite as clever as it thinks it is, but still oozing more dark wit than most teen movies can dream of. 3 out of 5 stars. Mark Cairo of the Chicago Tribune said, you may come to realize that if a bomb suddenly blew up everyone on screen, you wouldn't particularly miss anyone. 2 out of 5 stars. Like, what a review. Like, that's a review if I've seen one.
That's pretty rough. And then he still gave it a 2. I mean, you just wish death upon the entire cast of the film. I don't know if I've ever disliked a movie that much.
If everyone just dropped dead, you wouldn't miss anybody.
I didn't know anyone else was in here. I'm sorry. I'm Annette Hargrove. Catherine Rotoy. Have we met? I don't think so. Your father's the new headmaster at Manchester, right? That's right. I was sorry to hear about your brother. Are you okay? I'll be fine. Did you know Sebastian? I might say that. Such a tragedy, isn't it? Yes, it is. I'll leave you alone now. Are you sure you're gonna be okay? I'm here if you need a friend. That's great. I know it sounds really trite, but sometimes when I feel I can't go on, I turn to Jesus and he helps me through it. Thank you. Okay. I'll see you around campus. Looking forward to it.
And then Lisa Schwarzbaum of Entertainment Weekly said, foxy, snotty, and enjoyably trashy, B-. I think that's like, if I was to agree with anyone's review, I think Lisa's got it right here. Foxy, snotty, and enjoyably trashy. It's a trashy movie. It's not the worst thing that I've ever seen. All these people are, good on screen. They're enjoyable. The writing's pretty bad, but it's slutty, trashy, crappy romance stuff. Let's pushing the boundaries of 1999. I think if it's made, 10, 15, 20 years later, it's probably even more extreme in its R rating, but at 99.
I mean, it's already got the R rating. It's got a bunch of young, beautiful people in it. and at least one of them had already done nudity before, I still say, like, pay Reese Witherspoon another $500,000, get some nudity in there. This movie would have made probably $100 million.
Yeah.
At that point. Like, that's the thing for me with a movie like this is every movie doesn't need to be trashy, but if you're going to be trashy, man, really fucking go for it.
Go for it.
And I mean,
yeah.
This movie is, like she says, snotty. It's like, you know, you hate all the characters and that's kind of the point, but like a movie like this, if one of the young stars did a nude scene in it, then it would have been like even more talked about. And I don't know. I feel like that's kind of what this is missing.
Let's get to the awards, because the only awards that this was really nominated for were the MTV Movie Awards, which makes sense because that's what this movie was made for. And it won Best Kiss for Sarah Michelle Gellar and Selma Blair.
Of course.
Again, 1999. How many lesbian kisses are you seeing on TV or movies? It's like pretty rare. So, you know, it was definitely pushing the boundaries of what was around at the time. It had nominations for Best Male Performance for Ryan Phillipe, Best Female Performance for Sarah Michelle Gellar. She won. Best Breakthrough Female Performance for Selma Blair, and Best Villain for Sarah Michelle Gellar at the old MTV Movie Awards.
Correct me if I'm wrong. The most I can't stop thinking about it now. The most skin we see in the movie is Ryan Phillippe's ass.
Yeah, for sure. I can't think of any other nudity.
Yeah, Reese wears a bathing suit. That one scene with Selma Blair, she's like, he unzips her shirt, and when he was like telling her to take off all of her clothes, I thought she was going to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but surprisingly, no other awards. I think there was some other like teen award stuff, but. Sure. I mean, even the MTV Movie Awards is a stretch for awards. And then as far as like culture impact, there's a huge group of teenage movies with like kind of more adult themes that came out not only just in the 90s, but in 99 specifically. You got Varsity Blues, She's All That. I don't know what Jawbreaker is, but Cool Intentions, 10 Things I Hate About You, Never Been Kissed, and American Pie. So there was definitely a glut of like teenage movies with pushing the boundaries with like either nudity or more mature adult themes.
I don't know. Like Varsity Blues I'll give you because of like the coach putting the pressure on and like forcing the one kid to take the steroids or whatever that are probably going to fuck him up later on.
Bikini?
The whipped cream bikini.
There you go.
That one I'll give you. And Cruel Intentions, yeah, it's pretty dark, but like She's All That. It's like same thing with American Pie, and American Pie did have nudity, but it's like American Pie is one of those movies that some people talk about now and they want to like, you know, strike it from the record. Like you're not allowed to like it because it has some like skeezy things, you know, like broadcasting a naked girl on the internet without her knowing and stuff like that. And like, yeah, that was never a good thing to do, but a movie like that or She's All That that's all about like objectifying a girl and trying to change her, like what is really dark or sinister or whatever about those movies?
I don't know if like I don't think I use the word dark or sinister. I just think more adult, right? Like there's stuff.
I don't know, like would you call the movie Porky's adult? Like American Pie was basically the 90s version of Porky's. It's you know, it's a sex comedy,
anything that has to
but
do,
just
like,
having
nudity,
sex
right?
or nudity alone, I don't think makes it that, I don't know. Maybe I'm confusing adult with dark, but I mean, just having nudity, I don't think makes it adult. I think it makes it like a teen thing because that's what teens want to see.
Sure.
Like I know I loved looking at Elizabeth, what's her name's boobs and Shannon Elizabeth's boobs in American Pie.
Sure. But when I say it, I think you're taking adult as like dark, and I don't think adult means dark. Like Porky's is made for teenagers, but it's an adult movie. It's got like nudity and a bunch of stuff and swear words and anything that's like above for 18, right? I think like Superbad is like a great example of that. Like it's made for, you know, the teenagers, but it's got a lot of adult stuff about it that you wouldn't be allowed to. I know you'd understand this, wouldn't be allowed to watch it as a teenager.
I would just think that, like, well, that movie has like a ton of cursing, like an absurd amount of cursing.
Sure.
And like that gets it an R rating. Cruel Intentions is pretty intense with its like sexuality and whatnot. So like that I get. Varsity Blues isn't rated R, is it?
No, Varsity Blues isn't.
Like, are any of these other ones? Like 10 Things I Hate About You, I'm not super familiar with
PG-13.
that movie. It's been a long time since I've seen it. Like Never Been Kissed with Drew Barrymore. Like, I don't know how adult I would consider any of those. Varsity Blues and Cruel Intentions, yes. The other ones, it's like, 6 one, half dozen the other. Different people are going to have different interpretations of things, but like, I don't look at American Pie and think adult really about it at all. It's like a teenage fantasy writ large on screen. Like, kids want to see, like, young boys want to see boobs, there's boobs. It's got like stupid poop humor and stuff. Like, I don't know.
It's rated R, right? American Pie is rated R. There's no getting around that. Like, whether or not it's...
Yeah, because it has nudity.
Right,
but
that's what I'm talking about.
Like, all those other ones, though, I don't know. Like, I've never seen Jawbreaker.
I don't even know what that is. But
I don't think 10 Things I Hate About You, She's All That, Never Been Kissed belong in the same camp. I mean, even Varsity Blues, again, like, people watching a movie starring James Van Der Beek at the time want to see someone in a whipped cream bikini, but does that make it adult? I don't know.
But even is Cruel Intentions even any more adult than like Varsity Blues or American Pie?
Well, see, like, I watch a movie like She's All That, and that's like a teen version of a romantic comedy.
Sure.
And I watch something like Cruel Intentions, and like I said earlier, it's a teen version of an erotic thriller to me. Like they said, erotic thrillers are big right now in the 90s because of Fatal Attraction, Basic Instinct, stuff like that. Let's do one of those for, the high school crowd because there's money to be made there. Whereas the rest of those, like Varsity Blues, kind of a sports movie, but the rest of them are just like, comedies / sex comedies / romantic comedies.
I still think that they're a genre of movie that I don't even know if they exist anymore, where it's made for teens but has more mature themes, whether it's a comedy or a sex, like like Cruel Intentions, it's more noir or whatever. Like, regardless of the genre, I feel like Varsity Blues is just I would call it a drama more than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
It's made for teens, but deals with themes that are a little bit more adult. Whether they push the limits and actually go into R or not, I think is arguing semantics. I don't think we get these movies anymore. I think the closest that we got recently was the Jennifer Lawrence movie that just came out last year.
Yeah, where she has the nude fight on the beach.
Yeah. Like, what I'm saying is, in 1999, if you look at just these movies, whether they're exactly the same genres or whether or not the themes are as adult or not as adult as you want, there were definitely a lot of them in a short amount of time that all had this sort of a similar theme to them, where they're dealing with adults playing teenagers, for teenagers, deal with themes that might be a little bit more adult than your average teenage movie, I think. There was them in the 80s, like you had the Porky's run, and then like the Caddyshack and Revenge of the Nerds. So you had like that little run, and then they go away. And then in the late 90s, they kind of popped up again with things like this, Varsity Blues and American Pie. 10 Things I Hate About You and She's All That. And then they kind of go away. And I don't know if they've ever returned.
I mean, I feel like any of the movies that are in this kind of ballpark these days, they go like straight to streaming and I only peripherally hear about them.
But when you think about those movies, they have like actual big stars in them. And it's hard to say like...
But I mean, what the fuck is a big star now? Like, I don't know anything about it, but I know there was a movie, and I think there's like 2 or 3 of them now, that was like a Netflix movie, and it starred some like young guy that girls liked. I don't know if he was like some kind of influencer or if he came from, children's programming and now he's like a little older, but it's called like The Kissing Booth or something. And I feel like that was like super big with at least teen girls, if not all teens for a while there. And it's like something that I have no concept of because I never even saw a trailer because it didn't play in theaters. I just feel like the fucking times have changed as it is. And they're trying to get money in theaters from people who are willing to pay. And, kids these days just want to watch their Instagrams and YouTubes, and like they're not going out and paying to see movies. So why should they make movies for the theater that, are geared towards them? It's all just like straight to streaming for the most part.
Sure.
How did this turn from a conversation about Cruel Intentions into like old man yells at cloud.
I think that's the theme of this podcast, especially because we're covering the year 1999. All right, so as far as notes go, there was a sequel. It was released direct to video in 2001 by the same writer-director. It was assembled from 3 episodes filmed of Manchester Prep, a prequel series for Fox starring Robin Doon and Amy Adams as younger versions of Sebastian and Catherine, respectively.
Oh, just what we want. Younger versions of the characters from this movie who are just having sex
Right.
and
But it was
coke.
filmed for TV, so it had to be even like less scandalous.
Why didn't we go even further and do like the young Sheldon of this and just have them in like middle school, like, and see what they were like then?
See when he lost his virginity at like 8 or something,
Yeah,
like something ridiculous.
to one of his teachers or something
Yeah.
like that.
Amy Adams was a surprise though when I saw her name
Yeah.
being in this. Cruel Intentions 3 was released in 2004. Is directed by someone else.
So wait, there was a TV show that never ended up coming out, which was a prequel, and they assembled 3 episodes of it to make a movie, and then they did another movie?
Yes, both of them were direct to video. So I don't know how successful they are. I feel like
I'd love to know what the sales figures were on that Cruel Intentions 2 for them to be like,
Let's do it again.
that one was just cobbled together from 3 episodes of TV. If we actually try to make a movie out of it, we can surely do better with the third one.
Yeah, that's crazy. NBC picked up a television pilot for a continuation of the film's storyline in October 2015. The pilot was set 17 years after the events of the film and sees Bash Casey, son of Sebastian and Annette, discover his late father's journal. They ended up passing on the project and it didn't go forward. So they did a pilot, they picked it up, they started filming it, and they're like, never mind. We don't.
Something about like just this era we live in of everything is like a legacy sequel or a reboot or whatever. Just anytime I feel there is a new installment of an older franchise that's now about the kids of the previous people, I just feel like I immediately dislike it and don't want anything to do with it.
This was, 9 years ago. So that was even before the big boom of that. They tried to get it going.
But just hearing that description now, I'm just saying, I don't want it. The son of Ryan Phillipe. So Ryan Phillipe and Reese Witherspoon's characters have sex the one time before he gets hit by the car and dies. And now we're watching his kid
discover his dad's journal.
Oh, it's the worst.
Yeah.
I hate that idea.
In October of 2021, a television series reboot of Cruel Intentions was in development for IMDb TV, which is now Amazon Freevee. In April 2023, the reboot was given a series order. That was a year ago, so I don't know where it's at now.
Man, you know what's funny? You said that it was for IMDb TV, which is now Freevee.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I watched this. It's the very first time I have ever watched anything on Freevee. I've never used it before, didn't know what it was. And I just like looked it up on my phone, like, where can I watch Cruel Intentions? And it popped up like streaming with ads. And I was like, it can't be any different from Tubi. And it's really not.
Yeah.
But that's funny that it's on Freevee because they probably still have the rights to do it now if they're working on a new one.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. All right. So the question is, Ryan, I honestly don't know what the answer is going to be. Like, I could see you going either way with this one. Did you miss Cruel Intentions?
I think that 14 or 15-year-old Ryan, which is how old I would have been when this came out, I think he definitely missed this. Adult 39-year-old Ryan did not miss this.
Yeah.
You know, it was like I had been, unlike my last pick, which was Stigmata, where I was like, I kind of want to see it. Let's throw a horror movie in just because I'm me. This one I actually have still been curious about seeing for the longest time. So it's like finally putting that to bed. I'm not like upset that I watched it or anything, but yeah, it just didn't.
It didn't age well. It's one of those movies where it's like, if I enjoyed it back in 1999 or 2000 when I originally seen it, maybe just leave it there, right? Like just leave it in the recesses.
Yeah, I think it's a movie that only works if you have the mind of a 17-year-old.
In 1999. I don't even know if like a 17-year-old now would enjoy it, but
Yeah. I mean, it's time and place. It's like these were hot young people at the time, especially Sarah Michelle Gellar with like Buffy and everything. Like, you know, this is probably around the time of her Got Milk ad where she was wearing like the black lingerie and everything.
I mean, she was smoking in this, right? Like she looked good.
Yeah. I mean, she's super hot and, you know, she's got numerous scenes where she's being really seductive just to fuck with Ryan Phillipe. And I mean, you know, it's effective.
Did you ever watch Buffy?
I have seen part of one episode.
Oh, so no. No, you didn't. I didn't watch it either.
No, like, it was always one of those things that was on, and I would, like, put it on for a couple minutes and be like, I don't really like this, and switch to something else. But yeah, I've seen the movie, like the original movie that it was based on. We watched that, didn't we, for Sidetrack?
Yes, we did.
That movie was
awful.
fucking garbage.
Yes, very bad.
And I have to imagine the show was better, but...
Sure, but completely different, right? Like,
yeah.
That movie was terrible.
But no, never watched Buffy myself.
That's our next podcast. Ryan watches Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Count me out.
All right, well, that's going to do it for this episode of Movies I Missed, episode number 7, Cruel Intentions. Come back next time when we find out if we missed, or if I missed specifically, Bowfinger.
Yeah.
So that's going to be next episode. Until then, I'm Jesse Munoz.
And I'm Ryan Miller.
Come back next time for Bowfinger.